Fellow vets, there's some things that you need to know if you're thinking about filing a mental VA disability claim. We're going to talk today about how this could affect your life, how it could affect your employment. Is there certain people that will start getting involved, raising red flags? All of this is going to be covered in today's video, so definitely lock in. I'm Jordan Anderson with VAClaimsAcademy.com. Let's get right into it. So it's no secret that a mental VA rating is really the highest value claim that a lot of people get on average, clocking in at on average 70%. So you're talking about maybe $1,400, $1,500 per month just for one single claim. So why then is not everyone super excited to go ahead and claim their VA disability for mental? Well, there's a couple of things that a lot of folks are worried about. I had a client, and I do this periodically. He was super worried about, hey, you know what? I really like my Second Amendment. I go to the range all the time. I go hunting, what have you. I keep it for defense. Could this be jeopardized because of this mental claim? I'm not even going to claim this. I've got some stuff going on. He was talking about how he was deployed, had some nightmares, keeps waking up. I let him know, hey, this sounds like you may want to go ahead and get checked out. This sounds like it could be combat-related PTSD. And that's the reaction, right? It's like, oh, no, I don't want to start getting people involved. So how realistic is it actually? And where is the line between being safe, with your 70% and no one leaves you, everyone leaves you alone, and potentially crossing that line to where people are getting involved and maybe starting to encroach upon your rights, rather. Now, some people even believe where they think that if they're going to get a 50% or 70% mental rating, the next day they're going to have the SWAT team bust in the door and haul them away. Well, I'll tell you, this is the line. There's going to be a very distinct line that you cannot cross unless you want to get people involved. And what I tell my clients is the moment that you state that you have an action plan to harm yourself, to harm others, at that point, you're probably going to get people involved. Does this include ideation? No. Ideation, of self-harm is very common, and that oftentimes is in that 70% rating threshold. And I'll tell you, I have a lot of people who are police officers who are clients that have a 70% rating. A lot of firefighters, which, by the way, shout out to you firefighters. I know that a lot of you watch me in the fire station. I think that's really cool and very humbling. I know that I had one of the firefighters win their claim, and the very next week I had like 3 calls a day from other firefighters. So y'all are awesome. But a lot of folks in law enforcement and even with top secret SCI clearances, right? So higher than top secret, especially compartmentalized information. That's a clearance that I had in the military. They got 70% ratings all the time. It's so common. So I wanted to quell that idea that if you have a 70% rating, or even if you have 100%, that people are going to come after you. Now let's talk about the Second Amendment. Obviously, I'm not a Second Amendment lawyer, and obviously there's 50 states that do 50 different things. However, I can say that your Second Amendment doesn't cease to exist because you have a 70% rating. Again, once you cross over into that, hey, I have an action plan to harm myself, to harm others, that could be a separate deal. But all the way up to that, really, I have seen in my experience is totally fair game and really not a big deal. A large percentage of Americans are on antidepressants or on some type of psychoactive drug. So if you think about it, there really is a lot of mental health ailments in this nation, and it's no longer 30 years ago where this stuff was really taboo or people look at you odd. A 70% rating is normal. You're totally okay. But what about specific jobs, maybe that have higher standards? I'm looking at you pilots, right? The FAA maintaining, the ability to fly. That was hard enough in service. Well, it's still difficult out of service. You won't believe how many pilots that I get who are retiring that, it's like, oh, finally, this is my last year in. I can finally start going to the doctor. And all of a sudden they've got all these ailments that pop up. It happens all the time. You want to maintain the ability to fly. That's hugely important. I will tell you this. The FAA, the flight stuff is a lot more stringent in terms of the ability to get mental ratings, the ability to get other conditions even, service connected, and still be FAA qualified. I'll tell you this though, without naming any specific company, just because I don't have enough familiarity with them, I don't want them to treat you poorly, and you saw them here. There are companies that all exist solely to make sure that, hey, you can stay FAA qualified. They have doctors on staff, you can pay them, and just kind of get you cleaned up on the medical side. So definitely look into that route if you're FAA. Again, what if you're intelligence? What if you're a government contractor? I've already stated you can have a top secret SCI clearance, and as long as you're not a risk to yourself or others actively, you're going to be totally fine. In fact, a lot of the contractors have 70% mental ratings. Okay, so now some of you, might be thinking, okay, you know what? I might be willing to start getting this process done. What do I need to get started now? Well, the first thing to do is, if you're one of those who are really incredulous and apprehensive about approaching this, you probably haven't been to the doctor in a couple of years, right? So first thing to do, check into your mental doctor and make sure to tell them what's going on. This needs to get on paper, on document, so that you have a leg to stand on for a strong VA claim in the near future. Now, I would say that if this is you, if you want to take that first step, I would take action today. As a matter of fact, right now, go to va.gov and open up what's called your intent to file. So you can look it up on Google, figure out how to do that. It's very easy, but do that first. That way you have a full year window to actually get it done, file your claim, and once you hear back, you can get backdated pay to the day that you saw this video. If you're still on the fence and you still have a blockage in terms of pursuing that mental claim, you kind of got to step back and realize that a lot of that could have been the fact that you've been essentially programmed to keep things inside, to not complain. A lot of veterans have a tough time shaking that, and all of a sudden, okay, I'm out of the service. It's no longer service before self. Now it's my household before self, right? So if you're diminished because you got this lingering mental issue from service, you need to think about your household now and actually realize that, hey, it's time for me to be vulnerable, not for my sake, but for my household's sake. I gotta take care of them. So try to make that transformation. I really hope this video helped you out. If it did, hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it. By the way, if you're one of the first time you've seen these videos and you enjoy this video, click right here to see the next one. Cheers.